you also lost your mom at a pretty young age, like 30, right?
Yes.
How was that?
Well, so I'm trying to think. So my mom battled 3 forms of cancer over the course of 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Started when I was, 22, 23. I was pretty young.
Okay.
And it ebbed and flowed, and like one happened, then it went away. I mean, it was just a whole journey. And so it got to the point where it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that eventually took her life. And I'm only honestly learning today that there's a whole slew of even non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Like that's all the information I was given. So it would have been interesting to have known a little bit more deeply what form it was. But I think, my mom and I always had a pretty tumultuous relationship. Unfortunately, I just was a very rebellious, child. Still am at 51 to a certain degree. And so we butted heads a lot. And then you can imagine, and again, just not having context when I was younger, her being a mom to a kid with, do you know what I mean? Like, you just don't have context in understanding, the situation. So I was very rebellious because I was like, if I have to be the second mother to my sister, then you're going to allow me to be as independent and self-sufficient as I can be, right? So that was like my rebellion.
Yep.
But, when this was probably a couple of years before, weeks before she had passed away, I had to rush from LA to Toronto. Thank goodness I made it in time. And she passed away. So we had the funeral on February 14th of 2004. So of course, Valentine's Day was forever changed.
Wow.
But what I did for her for the funeral, if you can believe it, is I did her makeup.
Oh, wow.
I did, being a makeup artist.
Yeah.
And even though we had this, tumultuous relationship, I felt like the least that I could do, like a gift that I could give her, was to do her makeup. And I remember when I went to the funeral home, and like I provided the clothing, like the wig, the jewelry and everything. My best friend came. She was so terrified. Like, she was at the other end of the room, and I just was like, all right, here goes, took a deep breath and did it. But I'm so glad I did that.
What a gift.
I just felt like it was the least that I could do. But again, Jen, it's like that experience then, like, it just makes you more hard as a person, again, more intolerant, it just kind of like adds the layers to my situation, right? And so, so it was definitely hard to manage emotionally. Like, no one was talking about mental health like 20 years ago, right? So like, I didn't know. I just was like, okay, I'm going to deal with this, like partying and doing tons of drugs, which was like a lot of fun. It got me through it. And like, honestly, like I think it could have been worse. It could have been even like more destructive. I just felt like I had to release it in some way, if that makes sense. I also never cried. So I didn't cry from the time that like she passed away. I didn't even cry at the funeral. I spoke at her funeral. Wow. I didn't cry all the way until June of that same year when Sex and the City was wrapping up and they were saying all of their goodbyes and people were crying. And I'm like watching this, and then woo, it was like a deluge finally came out. So again, like grief and whatnot that, we were going to cover. It's like, again, like grief. No one tells you about grief and how to manage that, So it was a very interesting thing where like that triggered me to finally kind of almost deal with the grief and the passing of her. So it was a really just interesting time.